3 weeks before everything cracked open, I was doing what I always did on Fridays in Maple Ridge, Iowa, pushing open the bell-squeaky door of Caldwell's Market and asking for a single lottery ticket. Theo at the counter smiled the way people do when a habit is older than they are. I slid him $5 and recited the numbers I'd carried like rosary beads for decades. 12, 22, 34, 41. Powerball. 9. They're stitched with my life the day I married Leonard. The day my son was born, the house we scrubbed paid off and said grace in. I tucked the slip behind Leonard's old driver's license in my wallet and told Theo, cross your fingers. He always did. My name is Evelyn Hart, but most folks call me Lynn. 68 now, 2 winters into widowhood and living in what my daughter-in-law insists on calling the guest room, though it takes a special brand of hospitality to ask a guest for nearly every penny of her Social Security in the name of household contribution. They live in a new development where lawns look ironed and mailboxes match. My son Caleb says the neighborhood is a smart investment. Brooke says it photographs well. When Leonard died, the casseroles cooled faster than the advice. You can't stay alone in that old place, Lynn. I told myself moving in with family made sense for a season. The first month wasn't terrible. I cooked, I folded, I kept out of the way. Then favors turned into fixtures. Could you take Mia and Noah this weekend? Couple time. Could you wait for the cable tech? You're already out. Grab our dry cleaning. 1,000 small tasks braided together until my time belonged to everyone but me. One Tuesday, Brooke set out color-coded spreadsheets at the kitchen island like she was pitching to venture capitalists. To be fair, we should formalize costs. Rent for the guest room, utilities, food, incidentals, totals highlighted in brisk yellow $1,300. She slid a pen toward me with a smile that didn't touch her eyes. I signed because options are thinner in winter and thinner still when your name is on no lease. It's funny what you hear when you stand in a laundry room folding towels. Brooke on the phone, voice lowered but bright. Honestly, it's worked out. Lynn handles meals kid duty every other weekend and her check covers most of it. Like live-in help, except she pays. The laugh on the other end didn't sting as much as the truth in the sentence. I tried to keep my rituals. On Friday walks, the air tasted like tin and snow. I would pass our old house, the one Leonard painted himself, 2 coats, careful edges. The new owners chose a sunbeam yellow that would have made him grumble. White with black shutters looks dignified, he used to say. Dignity was something I could feel slipping, millimeter by millimeter, like a ring that's grown too loose. By early December, Brooke had a new idea and architectural drawings to sell it. A mother-in-law suite in the basement, she said, smoothing paper with her palm. A kitchenette, a separate entrance, privacy. The word told like a bell. Not privacy for me, convenience for them. Fewer overlaps in the kitchen. Fewer reminders that the person scrubbing pans was also the woman who once hosted Thanksgiving in a house she owned. Caleb stood behind her, hands in his pockets, looking everywhere but at me. It'll be finished by spring, he offered softly, as if spring were a consolation prize. What if I don't want the basement, I asked. Brooke's smile tightened a half-inch. Then, we'll talk about other options. We all need our space. Space. The kind they had plenty of and the kind I had to beg for. That night, I sat on the edge of the so-called guest bed and opened my little notebook. Numbers steadied me. 12 months at $1,300. Groceries I bought hours with the children, miles on my old car. I wasn't looking for a fight. I was counting the cost of peace. The snow started in earnest the next morning, quiet, relentless, the sort that makes everything look innocent from far away. I slid my feet into boots, slipped my wallet into my coat, and made for Caldwell's anyway. Some habits are a line you draw in the drift and refuse to let disappear. Theo rang me up and I said what I always say. Maybe this is the week. He grinned. You're due, Ms. Hart. I didn't know whether due was the right word. What I knew was this: sometimes justice walks, not runs. Sometimes it wears boots and breathes steam in the air. Sometimes it takes its time turning toward you until suddenly it doesn't. The snow thickened by evening, a soft, steady sift that made the streetlights look like they were breathing. I washed the last coffee cup, checked the latch on the back door habit more than worry, and climbed to the room Brooke called the guest space, and I called the place my hands forget their own keys. I read 2 chapters of a library mystery and pretended not to be counting down to the late news. At 10:58, the anchor's smile did that brightening thing, and the red tumbler dropped into view on Channel 7. The balls popped up in order like white buttons on a winter coat. 6, then 12, 22, 34, 41, and the Powerball 9. I didn't scream. I didn't even stand. It was as if the numbers had floated up out of a well I'd lowered my whole life into, and now they were simply returning to the surface. I rewound the DVR, checked the crawl at the bottom twice, then opened my phone and searched 3 different sites to see the string again. The digits refused to change. They wore my history. My hands remembered something my brain had not caught up to. They reached for my wallet for the slip tucked behind Leonard's license. There it was, the exact string in little black ink blocks. The paper felt warm and impossibly thin. A person could fold it into a paper crane and lose it. A person could drop it on the stairs and feed it to a vacuum. I closed my eyes and saw Leonard rolling paint on a summer afternoon, a stripe of white drying from glossy to matte, while he told me about amortization schedules like they were poetry. His lines came back to me in the voice I used to fall asleep to walk Lynn. Don't run. Counting isn't fear, it's care. So I started counting. What to do now, what to do next. Step 1, flip the ticket and sign. I did block letters, Evelyn Hart, then dated it, and took 3 photos full front, full back, and one with my hand in today's newspaper. I set my phone to upload the images to the cloud folder Mia helped me make when she taught me how to never lose photos again. Step 2, don't tell anyone until I know what I'm saying. Step 3, put paper where eyes won't think to look. I have a Baptist hymnal I keep for funerals, and the 2 Christmases a year I play piano at church by ear. The spine is loose from too many Be Thou My Vision s. I slid the ticket into the binding and put the book back on the shelf. Then I slipped the little notebook I kept under my pillow columns and totals and particulars into my purse. I didn't feel like a millionaire. I felt like a woman who suddenly had winter boots with real tread. Sleep, and I made a truce that night. I wouldn't chase it if it wanted to sit across the room and watch me plan. At some point, I dozed and dreamed I was counting geese, and each was a number from my life that shook water all over me as it flew. Saturday morning behaves like Saturday morning, whether or not your world has broken open. The heat clicked on and off. Someone thumped downstairs. Caleb has never learned how to land, gently on his heels, and Brooke's phone chirped reminders, those chirps that sound like a pinched robin. It was the grandkids' weekend. Mia and Noah would be dropped off at 10. Brooke, in matching leggings and a top, so white I was afraid to look at it, stood in the kitchen, pouring water into her bottle. Lynn, she said, voice pitched to the register she uses when she hopes to sound generous, we've got yoga, then coffee with Casey to talk about her vendor list. Can you be point for breakfast and screen time and general flow? Pancakes, I said. We'll keep it simple. You're a lifesaver. She kissed the air beside my cheek and swiped stray crumbs from the counter into her palm with impressive speed. Brooke has a thing called Reset Saturday, means all horizontal surfaces must declare their innocence. If you are not bolted or blooming, you will be put in a bin labeled with your fate. Caleb emerged with his golf cap and a face that wanted peace at any price. He glanced toward me, then toward Brooke, then toward Mia and Noah's empty spots at the table like a man trying to triangulate where safety would be at noon. Text if you need anything, he said. We'll be close. You'll be at Oxygen Collective and then Magnolia Roasters and then the Pro Shop. I said, not unkindly. He winced because it was true. The kids arrived full of questions and pink from the cold. Mia wanted extra blueberries. Noah wanted to know if we could watch the cartoon about the cat that solves crimes. We negotiated syrup and screen time and what it means to measure flour properly leveled, not heaping, I told Noah, like we're building a house and the studs have to be straight. It felt good to be precise about a thing I could control. Brooke cleared the island as if breakfast were a crime scene. Sticky rings, a few blueberries that had rolled away my tote bag. It all had to either return to a labeled drawer or face sentence. I'll do a quick tidy in your room after I switch the laundry, she chirped. Your closet rod is bowing. Maybe we should thin your clothes. I'll take care of it, I said too quickly. She cocked her head. I just thought I'd help. The dryer beeped. The kids laughed at a slapstick dog. The syrup bottle tipped and I righted it. Little things had always filled my days. No one sees the hand that steadies the bottle. No one knows the time arithmetic a woman makes in her head. 15 minutes here, $6 there. An hour of waiting for a cable window that stretches like taffy. Brooke returned with a plastic caddy and fierce purpose moving into my space, like a hired organizer on a show where sentimental people are coaxed into letting go. In the movement, her wrist a sweep, a lift, my wallet slid out of my tote and tilted just enough for the corner of the signed paper to show. It was like watching a goldfish flash its side in a bowl. What's this, she said? Not accusing at first, more curious like a magpie. She plucked the slip with 2 fingers as if it might be sticky. She reads before she feels. Her eyes moved. Her mouth opened. Her face did the math before her voice. Caleb. He came from his office so fast, his chair rolled into the wall. What? Do you know the Powerball sequence from last night? No, why would I? He stopped because the numbers were there, marching across the top of the ticket, and also marching across Brooke's phone as she tapped search engine, pulling up the string with gleeful speed. She set them side by side, my slip and the glowing screen. The kitchen, which moments earlier had been a small economy of domestic continuations, plates to sink cups, to rack, grew tall and oddly echoing. Mia leaned into the doorway. Are we rich? Noah said, can Rich have more pancakes? Go finish the episode, I said. My voice had not changed. What changed was the air around words. They suddenly had weight I could feel in my teeth. Brooke looked at me the way a person looks at a porch they've stood on 1,000 times and just now noticed it sits on a vault. Lynn, she said softly, Lynn. Caleb's fingers, big and a bit clumsy like Leonard's, hovered near the paper but didn't touch it. This is real. It is a lottery ticket, I said. Brooke laughed, a sound like glass bouncing on stone. It's the numbers. The numbers. This is the numbers. I could have let them run on. People create shapes with their talking until they fit themselves into a narrative they can survive. It is dangerous to interrupt a story that keeps someone breathing. Still, my name was on the back of the slip, and my life was in its spine, and I had not walked with cold boots and steadying breath for 32 winters to stand quiet now. Please hand it back, I said. Brooke didn't move. Caleb cleared his throat. Mom, he began, and the word hit me harder than the snow against the glass, because it has always been a rope we both hold. Yes, Caleb. Maybe we should be thoughtful. There are steps to something like this. He glanced at Brooke, who had already found an article about what to do first, after a big win. Her eyes were wild and professional all at once. We should talk to an accountant, she said, and an attorney. And there's the question of how we position things for taxes. She was talking to me and also to the imaginary camera she keeps in her head for the life she thinks she lives online. Hand it back, I repeated, calm as a singer finding middle C. Her gaze dropped to the signature, to the capital letters stamped like a fence. I watched the moment she understood the paper was legally not a cloud of money, but an object with a name. She handed it to me with the reluctance of someone returning a borrowed coat in a blizzard. I folded it, once slid it into the hymnal again, and set the book on top of the fridge for now, where no one ever voluntarily looks. In my chest, something unknotted, not the big thing, not yet, but a small knot that had held since Brooke first called the room a guest space. Okay, Caleb said, palms up now, mediator mode. Okay, we can all take a breath. Brooke took one, then another, her face smoothed. Of course, this is good news, she said carefully. For the family. For me, I said. She blinked. For all of us, she corrected as if tuning a violin. Think of what becomes possible. The basement suite could be done right, elevator chair, no budget compromises. Or we could look into a community with full services. Whispering Pines is lovely, remember? They have activities and a shuttle and schedules, I said, and rules about when you can eat soup and when you cannot. Brooke's smile thinned. It's not like that. Caleb shot her a look that said, not now, but she kept going as people do when their vision suddenly fills with shopping carts. We could also, this is just brainstorming, look at a bigger place. Something with an actual in-law wing. Everyone gets space. There was that word again, space, the kind of word you can use to mean generosity while pointing to a door with your chin. I'm going to the lottery office on Monday, I said. I'll ask about the options and the process. I will make a plan that ensures I can live without being anyone's line item. Caleb flinched, whether at the word line item or at the way I looked at him when I said it, I couldn't tell. He tried again for reasonable. We don't want you to feel alone in this. It's a lot to manage. I am competent to choose my own roof, I said. I didn't raise my voice because I needed the sentence to be clear in any weather. Noah, who has perfect comic timing, shouted from the living room. The cat found the secret. Mia giggled so hard she hiccuped. Brooke found her smile again. What we don't want, she said, in the kindest, faintly condescending tone I've ever heard, is for something to happen. People hear things. Reporters, scammers, neighbors. You shouldn't be driving around with that. She nodded toward the hymn book in your purse. I won't, I said. That's why I put it somewhere no one looks between breakfast and bedtime. Her eyes flicked to the book and back as if she could will it transparent. I can keep it in the safe, she offered. My jewelry safe has... No, I said too fast, then steadied. Thank you. I've already documented it. I lifted my phone. Photos upload the whole of modern caution. Caleb spread his hands, always the peacemaker. We're excited, he said, and we're nervous. Both can be true. Maybe we do a family meeting tonight, not decision-making, just alignment. I have pancakes, Noah announced, walking into the kitchen with a plate tilted at a dangerous angle. I caught it right at it, dabbed a syrup comet from his sleeve, and kissed his hair. He leaned into me without thinking. The muscle memory of being needed tried to tangle itself around my ankles again. I shook it free. After lunch, I told the kids we'll build blanket caves. Can we use the big quilt, Mia asked. Of course, I said, and it felt right that some yeses remain easy. Brooke and Caleb backed out of the room like people leaving a museum wing that suddenly houses a priceless painting they aren't insured to be near. In the hallway, I heard Brooke's whisper fierce voice. We need to make calls. I didn't strain to catch the rest. What people whisper into phones when their plans need a third hand is almost always the same song. I cleaned the griddle because kitchens do not cease to require care because money might exist. After the kids' episode, we stacked cushions and draped quilts and clipped clothespins to secure the skyline. Noah handed me a flashlight and announced we were spelunkers. Inside the dim, Mia told me in the very serious way of 10-year-olds that she thought rich meant you could buy cereal without looking at the price. Rich, I said, means you can buy time. For what? To be careful. She considered that. And to get the cereal with the little marshmallows, maybe once I conceded as a celebration. By afternoon, the house settled into one of those winter hushes that feels like a hand smoothing your hair. Brooke went upstairs to reset the closets, which is like listening to a paper storm. Caleb disappeared into his office and sent bursts of keyboard noise into the hall. I took my hymnal down and slipped the ticket into a Ziploc I'd labeled with the date and the words, "Do not discard." I might as well speak Brooke's dialect if I wanted the message to carry. Then I tucked the bag into the sleeve of an out-of-season coat that smelled faintly of applewood smoke. I opened my notebook and started a new page, if-then. If I choose the annuity, then steady income and less tax bite. If lump sum, then immediate control, bigger bite, invest wisely. If anyone asks to hold the ticket, then the answer is no. If the news spreads, then it spreads on my terms, not as a squeal from a doorway. I added a line I was surprised to see my hand write. Call Mr. Feldman. He's the old insurance man who handled our term policies back when Leonard picked life out with the same care he gave to picking caulk. Feldman is mostly retired now, but he knows a trustworthy attorney or two. It felt like anchoring a tent line to a deep rock. By 4, the light went blue. Mia and Noah fell asleep in the cave to a soundtrack of wind under the eaves. I stood in the doorway and watched them the way you watch bread rise quietly, knowing that hunger and comfort are intertwined. I thought about the way Brooke had said for the family and about how family is a word that can be stretched to cover kindness or pulled so thin it tears. At 6, Caleb knocked and then entered a childhood habit he never unlearned. He looked tired in a way that made me want to hand him his old blanket from when he had nightmares about tornadoes. "Mom," he said. "You okay?" "I am," I said, and I let it be true. He rubbed the back of his neck. "I'm sorry if Brooke was intense. She means well. She just fixes things by fixing things. It's hard to fix a thing that isn't broken," I said. "I am not a problem to be managed." He stared at the carpet. "I know." When he lifted his head, there was a boy in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. "I don't want to lose you." "You won't," I said. "You may lose access." His mouth opened and then closed. "That sounds transactional." "The last year has been exactly that," I said, not unkindly. He sat on the edge of the chair and looked toward the door as if he could see past it to the life he was trying to keep aligned. "When Dad died, He stopped, hands opening and closing, starting to say the thing I knew. I felt like the floor tilted. Brooke is good at pretending floors don't tilt. "Floors tilt," I said. "We learn to stand on them anyway." He nodded, and then very softly, "Is there any version where we're part of this with you?" "You are part of my life," I said. "That is the version." He winced again, but this time he accepted the bruise. "Maybe we can all eat together." Later, no agendas. No agendas, I agreed, because I'm not a woman who refuses meatloaf because a future needs clarity. Dinner was roasted chicken and green beans, and a salad with too many toppings. The kids performed a small play about cats who steal socks. Brooke poured wine and talked about a fundraiser she'd been asked to volunteer for, as if last year hadn't happened in the way it did. When she finally circled back to the subject that thrummed under every plate, she did it with her careful voice again. "We should be smart," she said. "People can get hurt by this kind of event." I set down my fork. "I have hired myself a rule," I said. 1, I do not discuss plans when I haven't yet been to the office that makes the plans possible. 2, I do not hand my paper to anyone who is not me. 3, I do not trade peace for silence ever again. Brooke's eyes flashed and then cooled. She turned to logistics. "So Monday, do you need me to drive you? I can clear my schedule." "I have feet," I said, "and a car that knows the way to most places." She gamely lifted her glass. "To possibilities." "To choices," I said, and touched mine to hers. After we cleared, I went upstairs and closed my door. I took the ticket out again, not to worship it, not to fear it, but to remind myself of the simple thing it represented. Not a windfall or a weapon, though it could be either in the wrong song. Room, the kind you don't have to beg for. I slid it back into its plastic sleeve, and because I am my husband's wife, made a copy on the old printer in the hallway that still makes a wheeze, like an old man getting up from a chair. I put the copy in the bottom of the flour tin, because if you are going to hide a thing, hide it in something that gets used often enough to seem boring. A little before 10, Mia knocked. She climbed onto the bed and handed me a drawing, a house with 4 windows, a cat in each, me, on the porch holding a loaf of bread. "I made our new place," she said, "where there's a cat for every window so they can look out." "It's perfect," I said. "Will we still come over?" "You'll visit," I said. "A lot." "Can we make pancakes there?" That I told her is non-negotiable. She nodded like a person at a negotiating table and slid off to find her toothbrush. When the house finally went quiet, I dialed Mr. Feldman and left a message in his gravelly box, the one that still says leave your name and number twice in case my hearing aid's on strike. I told him I needed in this order a recommendation for a lawyer who understands lotteries, a CP, who doesn't flinch at plain talk, and a saner version of a financial planner than whatever Brooke would find with a glossy brochure. Then I wrote 3 sentences in my notebook and underlined them twice. I am not for sale. I am not a problem. I am not going to the basement. The heat clicked on, and the vent near the window ticked as it warmed. Outside, the snow let up. The world refroze itself into a sharper version. I lay back, hands on my stomach, the way I did when Caleb was a baby, and I listened for his breath and waited for Monday to become the kind of day a person circles on a calendar, not because it is a miracle, but because it is a decision. Monday came in clean and cold, the kind of morning that makes your breath look like a thought you can see. I'd set 2 alarms I didn't need and woke before both. The ticket sealed in its plastic lay where I'd left it in the sleeve of the winter coat that still smelled faintly of last year's bonfire. I touched the ziplock like you press a pulse there steady. Mr. Feldman called at 7:15, gravel-voiced and pleased that my message had been the first thing his hearing aid did right all weekend. You want quiet professionals, he said. No billboards, no slogans. I booked you for noon with Marjorie Lane Estate and Tax Law, calm as a church pew. CPA tomorrow at 9. Bring the paper. Bring a notebook. Bring shoes you can walk out the door in if someone talks to you like you're 5. I have boots, I said. Even better. I brewed coffee and scrambled eggs because grand gestures don't keep people full. Brooke was already moving the house into what she calls a media-ready state, pillows, tossed and then untossed into Engel's fresh eucalyptus in a vase for the kitchen island. Something happened, she said lightly, as if commenting on the weather. Theo's cousin's wife posted numbers from the store and people put 2 and 2 together. There are vans outside. I looked through the front curtains. 2 local stations and a site I don't recognize had sent trucks, dish domes, tilted like metal mushrooms. A woman in a red coat checked her teeth in the reflection of our window and practiced a smile. The cameraman did a little hop in place to keep warm. The sight was so absurd I almost laughed. We can go out the garage, Brooke said. Or better, let me handle this. I can give a statement about our family's gratitude and I'll speak for myself, I said. Caleb hovered behind her, trying to be a lighthouse and a foghorn at once. Mom, it could get intense. Maybe later after the lawyer. I'll be plain and brief, I said. Plain and brief, our armor. I put on the coat with the ticket in the sleeve and the boots with tread. When I opened the door, microphones extended like tulips. The reporter in the red coat stepped forward, voice bright enough to see your reflection in it. Ms. Hart, congratulations. How does it feel? Like January, I said, cold and clear. They smiled, chuckled, leaned closer. I kept my hands in my pockets and my feet exactly where they were. I know you have jobs. I'll say 3 things and then I need to go to an appointment. 1, I'm grateful. 2, I'll be seeking independent advice before I make any decisions. 3, I intend to live on my own and pay my own way. That is all. A microphone bobbed. Are you saying you won't be sharing with... I'm saying I intend to live on my own and pay my own way, I repeated, and the repetition made it true in the air. Thank you. Behind me, I felt Brooke bristle with unsaid syllables. Beside me, I felt Caleb exhale like someone who'd been holding a breath for a year. I walked to my car without hurry. The cameras caught Boots' coat hair, the whole of me arranged exactly as I meant it to be seen. A person going somewhere of her own choosing. Lane and Avery occupies the 2nd floor of an old brick building above a framing shop. The stairwell smells like lemon oil and paper. Marjorie Lane met me at the door to her office with a palm-up gesture and an expression that said she had seen all the ways people can be unsteady and still believed in level ground. I'm Marjorie, she said. You must be Ms. Hart. Coffee water. Permission to get right to it. Please. She didn't ask to hold the ticket. She asked to see the photos, first front back date, and then nodded at the ziplock like it was a child tucked in right. We'll claim through a revocable living trust in your name, she said. Keeps your home address out of the paper as much as possible. The state won't let you be completely anonymous, but we can take most of the heat off your porch. Off my porch, I echoed the phrase fitting like a glove. We'll talk annuity versus lump sum. Given your age and goals, annuity often makes sense, predictable income tax. Smoothing time to build a plan instead of buying one in a panic. But I'll run both paths so you can see numbers, not slogans. She slid a single sheet across the desk. This is a checklist for today, only claim appointment, security steps, banking basics, immediate boundaries. Boundaries appeared on the page in clean print. No loans, no co-signing, no keeping cash in houses, no social media posts, no new advisors you didn't select. Press 1 short statement, then silence. I've done the first and the last, I said. Boots and brevity. She smiled. Boots and brevity can beat a battalion. We covered the boring bits that keep windfalls from blowing away a P.O. box, A dedicated phone number for financial matters, a new email that isn't your first name plus a number. We'll open a relationship with a bank that can handle a trust, she said. I'll go with you if you want. We'll set two-factor on everything. And until your claim is processed and your structures are in place, you do not change your routine in ways that draw extra attention. People notice new cars, not new accounts. Accounts are my speed, I said. She asked about my family, and I told her the truth without adding adjectives. Widow, 1 son, his wife, 2 grandchildren I would like to keep pancakes in my life for. What are your first goals once the check clears? She asked. An apartment where the bed is mine, I said. A piano that stays warm. Time. She nodded like a metronome. We can accomplish that and still leave more than enough for future you to be silly if she wants. In the meantime, I'd like you to consider clear lines for relatives if you decide to help gifts go from the trust to the purpose, not through people. Tuition paid to schools. Medical bills paid to providers. It avoids the sinkholes. Lines, I said. Yeah. She flipped to a fresh legal pad page. Tell me the last year in numbers. I told her 12 months at $1, $300, groceries, hundreds of hours of childcare, the weekly lists of errands that look like kindness and function like payroll. She didn't flinch. She didn't look scandalized or ask if maybe I had misunderstood. She wrote in neat columns, the kind of handwriting that doesn't apologize for being legible. 2 more things she said when we'd finished. First, I'd like your permission to place the original ticket in our firm safe until the claim appointment. You'll receive a receipt, and we'll make certified copies. It's not about trust. It's about temperature and humidity and the number of catastrophes we can subtract. I'll miss the weight of it in my coat, I said, and surprised myself. You'll keep the feel of it, she said. That's the part that travels. Second, she continued, Mr. Feldman sent over a scan this morning. Your late husband left what we call a letter of wishes with his insurance file. It isn't legally binding. It is emotionally clarifying. Would you like me to read it? My hands went flat on my knees. She unfolded a single page and read without dramatics in a voice that made each sentence sound like a plank laid true. Lynn, if I can't be around to grumble about paint colors and check the math, here's what I'd say. You are good at careful. Careful isn't fear, it's love with a pencil. If anyone puts you on a spreadsheet, turn yourself into a wall. Walls keep the house up. Buy yourself light. Ask for receipts. Keep the hymn book. L. My throat did that old ache. Keep the hymn book, I said. She handed me a copy. He also took out a paid-up annuity that has matured. It isn't giant, about $200,000, but it was meant to be the bridge between what if and what now. It's in your name alone. I exhaled in a way that let winter out of my lungs. He always liked bridges. We all do, she said. Now. Strategy. She drew 3 boxes and labeled them Home, Health, Heart. Home, pick 3 apartments you'd actually enjoy. Health, set up a primary care appointment and tell them life changed. They'll listen differently. Heart, choose one thing to give that isn't about anyone's approval. Library, piano, church, roof, adult literacy. Something that reminds you money's job is to match values, not stage photos. Library, piano, I said before she finished the sentence. Good, she said, and underlined it as if we'd solved something larger than keys and benches. At the end, she slid a slim folder across the desk. Inside were my copies, the claim appointment details, and a card with her cell number. This afternoon, go home by a different street. This week, no sudden moves. Tonight, if you have a family conversation, bring your small notebook and speak in numbers and boundaries, not blame. Blame breeds argument. Numbers end meetings. Numbers end meetings. I repeated, trying the phrase on my tongue. It fit. Outside, the day had brightened. The snow on the awning shone like a clean sheet. I drove the long way back past the grocery that still uses a bell when you enter in the park, where Noah fell out of the low branch and learned he could cry and still climb. At a red light, I imagined the keyboard I'd put in a corner near a window, then the chair that would become everyone's favorite because it didn't pretend sitting is a performance. Brooke met me at the door with a binder tabs like teeth and an expression she must practice in mirrors. Good, she said, you're back. I assembled some best practices for windfalls. We can go through after dinner. I have an appointment to put the ticket in a safe, I said. Then I'll be home. In a bank safe, she asked, eyes bright. In my lawyer's safe, I said. Her smile flickered. Transparency builds trust. Boundaries build it faster, I said, and hung up my coat. In the afternoon, the vans had thinned to one persistent crew and a blogger with a drone he wasn't supposed to fly. I closed the curtains and made soup because there are evenings when soup is a forward-looking statement. Caleb came into the kitchen, hands in pockets, and watched the pot, like it might spell something in steam. How was the lawyer, he asked. She was the kind of person you want near your roof, I said. Mom, he began, then stopped, then started again on a different road. Can we talk tonight? Not debate. Talk. Yes, I said, after we eat. I have lines I want to say only once. He nodded, relieved as a man given a map. At 7, we sat in the living room without the television and without the kitchen island performing as a conference table. I brought my small notebook and a pen. Not the hymnal, that would have made everything feel like a sermon. I'm going to say a few things, I began. Then you can ask questions. Brooke folded her hands as if for a photograph. Caleb stared at the rug. 1, I've retained counsel and will file the claim through a trust. 2, I'm choosing arrangements that allow me to live alone and pay my own bills. 3, as of today, I'm ending the monthly payments I've been making toward this household. Brooke inhaled as if she'd been pushed into cold water. Lynn. 4, I said before she could arrange the alphabet. If I help anyone financially, it will be paid to purposes not to people tuition to schools, medical bills to providers if and when I choose. 5, I won't be moving into a basement suite. Caleb looked up then. The boy appeared in his eyes again, the one who used to wake from a tornado dream and ask if the house knew our names. Okay, he said, small and genuine. Brooke smoothed her skirt so hard it creased. I wish you'd looped us in sooner, she said. We could have. What you could have done, I said evenly, was notice me when I was right here. Silence settled, not like punishment, but like rest. I turned a page in my notebook. I also kept numbers. I'm not asking for anything back. I am asking that going forward we call things what they are. I read the lines that mattered, the months, the checks, the hours with Mia and Noah, that I loved and that still counted as work when they allowed you to go to yoga and golf and vendor meetings without paying a sitter. I didn't add adjectives. I let the arithmetic speak. Brooke's eyes filled, not the shiny kind she uses when a camera is near, but the angry kind that want to overflow and don't. We thought we were sharing, she said. You were billing, I said. I agreed because I was grieving and because I hoped kindness would show up if I paid in advance. That's on me. This is me stopping. No one moved for a long minute. Somewhere down the block, a plow scraped the street into a new shape. I want pancakes at your place, Mia announced from the hallway where she had been crouched like a cat for the last 5 minutes. I had known she was there and had let her stay because sometimes the truest thing in a room is 10 years old and wearing socks with stars. You'll have them, I said. We'll hang quilts and call it architecture. She grinned and vanished. I'm not shutting you out, I told Caleb. I'm unlocking my door. He nodded, his mouth doing that quiver he hates. Thank you. Brooke swallowed. What does living alone look like? Like an apartment with a window that gets morning, I said. A keyboard, a chair, a table that doesn't double as a conference stage, and a calendar I write in pen. She stared at her hands. And us? Dinners, I said. Grandkid Fridays. Fewer assignments, more invitations. When they went to bed, I stood in the kitchen and wrote 3 more lines in the notebook under the ones I'd underlined last night. I am going to choose an address. I am going to fund a piano bench. I am going to sleep without asking permission. Then I rinsed bowls and set the hymn book back on the shelf, not as a hiding place this time, but as a thing that belongs where it is seen. Outside, a reporter recorded a stand-up to a camera that blinked like a sleepy eye. Inside, the soup pot cooled. Somewhere in town, a librarian turned a key and a light over an old upright flicked on, and the dust on the keys rose when the room warmed, the way dust always does. When a story remembers, it can become music. The next evening, the living room was arranged like a stage. Brooke had laid out her binder, again tabs and printouts like shields, while Caleb opened a bottle of red wine no one would drink. I sat opposite them with my small notebook. It felt like armor, not paper. Brooke began with her soft client voice. Lynn, we know yesterday felt intense. We'd like to reset. I've compiled articles on how families can manage sudden wealth. The consensus is clear: without guidance, winners make reckless choices. We can help you avoid that. I let her finish the paragraph before I spoke. You've both worked hard at your presentation, but I've already taken advice from people who don't charge me rent in my grief. Caleb's hands pressed together. Mom, we're not trying to take advantage. We just don't want to see you hurt. I opened the notebook to the page Marjorie had coached me through. Then listen. This is what being hurt looked like. I paid $15,600 into this household last year. I provided over 1,000 hours of childcare. I cleaned and cooked while you golfed and lunched. In return, you planned to move me into a basement. That is exploitation, not family. The word landed in the air like a bell, clear and undeniable. Caleb flinched. Brooke's eyes filled, but her tears looked like they belonged to someone caught, not someone sorry. We thought of it as sharing, she whispered. You thought of it as billing, I said. For a long moment, no one spoke. The house creaked the way old houses do when winter settles its shoulders. Finally, Caleb leaned forward. What are you saying, Mom? I'm saying this. I've already signed papers. The claim is in process under my trust. I've put a deposit on an apartment at Meadowbrook Senior Community. 2 bedrooms, a piano nook, a kitchen that isn't a battlefield. I'll move next week. Brooke's mouth opened, then closed. You'd leave us. I'm not leaving, I corrected. I'm reclaiming. You can visit, I'll visit. But I will not be your tenant, your unpaid help, or your line item again. Caleb's face crumpled into something younger, almost the boy who used to ask if tornadoes knew our names. You meant comfort for yourselves, I said gently. Now I mean comfort for me. I rose. The notebook went back in my bag. I'll still be at Mia's dance recital. I'll still make pancakes with Noah. Those are not in question. What is in question is whether you see me as kin or as capital. From now on, only one answer is acceptable. They didn't follow me to the door. Maybe they couldn't. Maybe they were finally doing the math in silence. Outside, the air cut sharp but clean. The snow had stopped the sky opening to stars that looked like small approvals. I walked to my car boots, steady on the salted walk. Each step felt like punctuation, not an ending, an assertion. Behind me through the window, I saw Brooke press both hands to her face and Caleb bend low as if searching for words in the carpet. Their storm would rage, but it would not be mine to weather anymore. When I turned the key, the hymn book in the seat beside me slid an inch as if Leonard himself had nudged it forward. I rested my hand on the cover and whispered, I kept the wall, Len. I kept it. The engine hummed steady, the road ahead was plowed ready. I drove away carrying nothing that wasn't mine. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring more journeys and lessons together.